Good morning, students. This video is for class 6 science physics, and as we have already started with the chapter. Today we will discuss about from where we have finished in the during the online classes. In the online classes we have finished till contact forces. Today we will learn about non-contact forces. We will learn about non-contact forces. What are non-contact forces? The forces that come into play or that acts between two surfaces when they are not in touch with each other, when they are not in contact with each other. So suppose, for example, the pull of an iron nails by the magnet, or maybe the falling of an apple from the tree towards the surface of the earth is non-contact forces, because there is no contact, physical contact between the two surfaces, but still the apple or the mango is falling. So these are non-contact forces, the forces that acts between two surfaces when they are not in contact with each other or when they are not in touch with each other. Consider a body falling down. We know that it is falling down because Earth's gravity is pulling the body towards it. What do you mean by gravity? The pull of the Earth. This is known as gravitational force or gravitational pull. The Earth's surface has its own attraction, has its own ability to attract things which are towards itself. That is known as what? That is known as gravitational force. But is there any physical contact between earth and the body? But when an apple or when a fruit is falling or anything is falling from up towards the surface of the earth, is there any physical contact? No, there is no physical contact. But the gravitational force of the earth's surface is actually acting upon both the surface and it is pulling it down. No, still there is a force between earth and the body. This kind of force acting between any two bodies that do not have any physical contact between them is called a non-contact force. It is also known as an action at a distance. So this non-contact force is also known as an action at a distance. That means an action that takes place without coming in contact with the object. An action at a distance. And these non-contact forces, they are of various types. We will discuss about this. So number one is gravitational force. Number two is electrostatic force. And number three is magnetic force. You know these two very well, gravitational force and magnetic. Gravitational force is the pull of the earth's surface towards itself. Magnetic force is the force applied by the magnet to attract any magnetic substance or another magnet. Electrostatic force is that force which is applied by getting charge on it, electrical charge. We will discuss it later. Let us first discuss about gravitational force. Gravity or gravitational force is the force that attracts object towards a physical body or mass. It is the force of the earth. It is the attraction. It is the pull of the earth surface towards itself. Gravitational force acts between all objects in the universe. It can be sun, earth, planets, etc. Just because of this gravitational pull, the planets, the star, the sun, it is fixed in its own place. If there were no gravitational force, things wouldn't be placed in its particular place. It would have been flying here and there. Gravity even acts between atoms and constitute matter. Gravity, the atom, we have studied earlier. Atom, the matter is made up of atom. So all the atoms, because of this gravity, because of this attraction, these atoms are together and they form matter. The force of attraction that pulls object towards the surface of earth is called the gravitational force of earth, as I have already told you all. It plays a very important role in our life. Gravitational force of earth allows us to walk on the surface of earth. If there are no gravitational force, we wouldn't be able to walk. We would have flown here and there. which ensures that the objects on Earth always stays on the surface of the Earth. It is because of the gravitational force, each and every object that you can see, they are in its fixed place. And that is why a ball thrown up in the air comes down. The gravitational force exerted by the sun causes the revolution of the planet around the sun in their orbit. So it is because of the gravitational force the Earth causes the revolution of the planet around the sun, and they have an orbit. It is because of the sun. It is because of the gravitational force. Suppose if this is the sun, they have an orbit, and the and the planets, they revolve around in its fixed orbit. If this is because of the gravity of the Earth, sun. Now suppose if there are no gravity, this planet one would have been here, one would have been here, one would have been here. They wouldn't be revolving around the sun. So I hope I hope you have understood. Now, gravitational force is dependent on the mass of the body. It is gravitational force. The more the weight, the more the mass of the body, the more will be the gravitational force. So for example, suppose if you throw a feather from a very great height, the feather will fall very slowly. But at the same time, if you throw a stone, you will see the stone will fall much faster than the feather. Because why? Because the weight of the stone is much heavier than the weight of the feather. Gravitational force is dependent on the mass of the body that exerts the force. The sun is a massive star. The gravitational force of the sun is about 28 times that of Earth. The mass of the moon is about 1.2% of Earth's mass. So the gravitational force of the moon is much less than that of the Earth. So if you see, the more the weight, the more will be the gravitational force, as I have explained you with the example of feather and stone. So the gravitational force of the sun is much more than the gravitational force of the Earth. But if you compare the gravitational force of the moon, it is much less than the Earth. What is weight? Weight of an object is the measure of the gravitational pull or gravitational force exerted on it. So what do you mean by weight? The weight is actually the amount of gravitational pull or the amount of gravitational force that acts on the body. So suppose if you throw a ball, suppose if you throw a stone, the amount of gravitational pull that the Earth's surface exerts on that stone, or the amount of gravitational force that the surface of the Earth exerts on that stone, is actually the weight of that object. So it is the mass of it. So it is the product of the mass, the weight of the mass of the object multiplied by the gravity, the amount of gravitational force that is applied by the Earth's surface, and a constant representing the gravitational force exerted on the object pulling the object. This constant is known as acceleration due to gravity and is represented by g. So the symbol used to explain the acceleration due to gravity is known as g. So weight of an object is given by, so if you measure the weight of an object is given by the mass of that object as well as the amount of gravity. The value of g on the Earth's surface is 9.8 meter per second square. So this is the value. So whenever you multiply the weight, whenever you calculate the weight of an object, you have to multiply the mass as well as the gravity. The value of the gravity is 9.8 meter per second square. Its value changes with the change in the gravitational force. So if there is less gravitational force, the value will change. If there is more gravitational force, the value will change. So for example, the value of g on the surface of the moon is 1.6 meter per second square, where the gravitational force is much less than that on the Earth's surface. So wherever the gravitational pull is less, wherever the gravitational force is less, the weight of the object will be less. Wherever the gravitational force is more, the weight of the object will be more. So I hope you have understood this, children. Okay. The next you have your electrostatic force. Next we will discuss the second one, that is electrostatic force. The force that acts on an object when it gets electrically charged. Now this charge can be two types. One can be proton and the other can be electron. So suppose if you have seen a battery, a cell, we call this in biological term, we call it cell. So you will see one end of the cell will be marked negative, that means minus sign, and the other end will be positive. That means one end is electron charge, that means negatively charged, and the other end will be positively charged, which is known as proton. So let us study about this. The force acting between charged particles is called electrostatic force. That means two charged particles, when the force that acts between two charged particles is known as electrostatic force. It can either be a force of attraction or a force of repulsion. So if, what do you mean by attraction? When you actually pull things towards yourself, and repulsion, going away from each other. So like for magnet, when you find both the poles to both the like poles, they will repel each other. That means they will move away from each other. But if you see both the unlike poles, that means one is north pole and the other is south pole, they will attract each other. In the same way, if both the ends, if both the particles are positively charged, they will not attract, they will actually repel each other. And if both are negatively charged, they will also repel each other. But if you find one particle positively charged and the other particle is negatively charged, they will attract each other. So unlike gravitational force that causes only attraction, electrostatic force may cause attraction or repulsion of charged particles. So in case of gravitational force, they actually pull things towards itself. But when it comes to electrostatic force, they can pull things towards itself and they can throw away from itself also. The nature of the force depends on the nature of charges. So what they will be doing, they will be attracting or they will be repelling. It depends upon the type of charges they have. Like charges repel each other while unlike charges attract each other. In other words, two positively charged or two negatively charged repel each other. That means they move away from each other, whereas a negatively charged and a positively charged attract each other. Electrostatic force between charged objects. We have already learned that matter is made up of atoms, and atoms are both positively charged called protons and negatively charged called electrons. So we know any matter is made up of atoms, and that atoms can be negatively charged or positively charged. If it is negatively charged, they are known as electrons, and if it is positively charged, they are known as protons. Normally, in an atom, the number of positive charges and negative charges should be equal. So normally, under normal condition, the number of positive charge or negative charge, it has to be equal. It has to be same. But electrons tend to move. Electrons tend to move from one atom to another. When two objects are rubbed against each other, the objects with more electrons may lose some to the objects with fewer electrons. So electrons, the negatively charged, they have this tendency of moving from one atom to another. So whenever you rub two objects with each other, the atoms, the object which has more electrons will start losing its electron, and that electron will be transferred to the object which has less electron in it. This will make the objects with more electrons may lose some to the objects with fewer electrons. This will make both the objects charged. When an atom or object has more positive charges than negative charges, when it loses electrons, it is called positive. It is positively charged. So suppose an electron, it has what? It has positive charge, negative charge. The same. So you have one more. From where you have less number of negative charges. Now you have less number. So what will happen? These electrons will be transferred to this one. So it will go here. So when it is transferred, these electrons will have more number of positively charged protons. That is why this will become positively charged and this will become negatively charged. When an atom or object has more negative charges than positive charges, when it gets electron from another atom or object, it is called negatively charged. When charged bodies are brought together, they attract or repel depending upon the charges they have in them. So an atom which has both equal electron and proton, when you rub against another object, the electron will just because they have the tendency of transferring from one atom to another, so they will get transferred to the other object. And here in the beginning, this atom will have more proton, positively charged, and the other atom will have less electron, more electron. Why? Because they have already transferred. So one will be positively charged because they have more number of protons, and one will be negatively charged because they have less number of electron in it. So children, for today keep it till here. In the next class we will discuss about the magnetic force. So for today up to this much. Thank you class.